professional podcasters, so we know you don't eat while you're recording, and if you're gonna eat, you put the mute button on. Right. That's we have the video so that you can see when we're sustaining ourselves, because this amount of brain power takes a lot of energy. A lot of those kcals. Do they say kcal in America on the label, or is that like a European thing?
No,
What
they say calories. No,
what do they
no
got going on
kcal.
there in Australia? Kcal?
We
Like,
got joules or kilojoules. It's awesome. I
Oh,
have no idea what they are,
yeah,
wow.
so
What
I
does
don't know
that
what I'm
mean?
eating.
You have to
I
do the
remember.
conversion in your head. Whoa.
No, I don't bother. I just eat
I
what I
know.
eat.
I know. I maybe shocked the world with my love of XML and my rebellion against JSON a couple episodes ago. So I don't want to like do that again. But like, you know, just list calories.
Is
Like
it, aren't
you don't need to
calories on
get
American
fancy.
labels actually kilocalories? But they're like, we can't be bothered to put the K there.
Yeah, you know they probably are, but it's just
They
like,
are.
come on. Like what are we doing here, right? Are we like focusing on the right things, or are we just focusing on some bullshit that no one cares about? Like I think
The theme for
kcal.
today.
Anyways, that's not what I came here to talk about today. Uh, Speaking of kcals, I think I've rediscovered rice cakes. You got the unflavored rice cakes, which I think I've got something in my palate that enjoys the taste of cardboard.
Wow.
Because there's many things that I eat that I'm like, yeah, it's kind of like cardboard, and these rice cakes are kind of like cardboard. But
Did
I
you
don't,
eat a lot of glue when you were a kid?
well, I was just thinking as I was talking about that, there was this period of time where my mother was dating a guy who would spend, I don't know if I've told this story on the podcast in the 30 years we've been doing it, but he would spend half of his year working for the IRS in Austin and the other half in India with his guru. And so she went out with him for a while, maybe a lot shorter than I remember, because when you're a kid, things can seem eternal or you just don't remember them.
Yeah.
And so there was a lot of alternative eating, so to speak. And
Cardboard.
maybe I picked up some habits then. I remember we went
Wow.
to a is it called an ashram? We went to some
Yeah.
ashram in upper New York once. And I remember three things. One, of course, being in a big meditating room. I must have been, I don't know how old. Luckily, I was a good kid, so I knew how to shut up so that adults could get enlightened. But like, I remember being in a big meditating room, and that just people like just sitting around. It was kind of like, at a kid, you go to the library and they read you books in the kids section.
Yeah.
It was like that, except no books, no one was talking, and the lights were really poor. And it was fine in the parlance of the podcast. And then
Wow.
I also remember we were in a bunk, not bunk beds, but we were in whatever you call communal.
Communal living.
Yeah, whatever. And someone else had brought their kid, which is great, and they were drinking out of a big water bottle, and they were eating bread at the same time. And the kid like didn't know how to like eat, and so there was all this backwash of bread in the water bottle. And now that will stick in your mind for the rest of your lives, and it has stuck in my mind. Now, the other thing that I remember is the food was awful. It was like imagine Casa del Luz in Austin -5, and
Oof.
it was just like there was no flavor. It was almost like I think there was like lentils, which is
Ugh.
understandable, but like it wasn't like I love food from all over the world, Indian food, all that kind of stuff.
Spices.
I
Yeah.
I don't know what happened. There must have been some tariffs back then because all they could get was like lentils and oatmeal with water, and
Well,
it was no good.
Coté. They were there to have their minds enlightened, not their palates.
Yeah, yeah. And fourth thing I remember, and then maybe we can get back to rice cakes, is they had a lot of comics that were basically comics of Hinduism, and it was great.
Like
Of course, the one that I liked the most was about Hanuman, if that's how you say his name, the monkey god, and
okay.
then Kali, because you want to have the killer and the monkey. It's something that a boy in the '80s would just be totally into. I
Wow, Coté.
apologize if I've offended people with my simplification of a complex, beautiful religion. But that's what I was a child, so I'm relating the child things to you. But so I wanted to ask you too. Are rice cakes? Are they on the menu? Are they in the snack bars in your house?
No, never
No.
eat them. I don't
No,
know.
I mean-
They seem to offer nothing. They are neither tasty nor filling. So there's
Yeah.
seems I have no need. Matt, maybe you seem like someone who can maybe find their way.
Yeah, you're
around
like, you're
rice
like
cake.
running a marathon down in rice
No.
cakes.
Oh God, no. Rice cakes would be like horrible. They're all backwashing in your water bottle.
It was like a gigantic. I mean, I was a kid, so everything seemed giant, but like it must have been like a 3-liter water bottle, and it was almost like a
God,
snow
stop.
globe. It
Oh,
was
no.
crazy.
But more importantly, Coté, like you even in your description of them, you kind of said they taste like cardboard, but you seem to like
I
them.
like
so,
'em.
So maybe the best question is like, what do you like? What are Matt and and I don't know,
I don't
thousands of
know.
listeners possibly missing?
They're it's kind of like a
They're like
slice.
busy food.
Yeah. Well, one, there's that. Like, I think it's okay to eat as many as you can stand. What with the K-Cows? Like, I think you're cool with that. And then it's kind of like, you ever get like a slice of like really rustic brown bread without butter, and it's just I don't know. There's something about it, that
I mean,
it's
the-
inexplainable.
there's definitely a textural component to food that I definitely enjoy.
Yeah.
Where you will eat things because you enjoy the flavor, but you also enjoy it like the mouthfeel. But rice cakes are they are only a 50% at best food. They just no, they're just
Yeah.
boring.
And now the way that it came into the family, and I think this has been in the rice cake industry, the thought leadership and innovation, is you can get a rice cake that we know from our childhood, aforementioned cardboard, but you can also get a rice cake that's covered in caramelly sugar.
Sure,
They're still kind of bad.
And so
though.
that,
we've had them. Yeah.
and my kids love them. My youngest kid, the 5-year-old, she's very, very typical third child, where we're just like,
Go feral.
yeah. It's just kind of like we're tired, and she gets really upset at me if I don't give her a rice cake in a circle. I try to break it up so it fits in her lunchbox. She wants the circle. Talk about mouthfeel, right? But
Wow.
so once we got those in, we get the other rice cakes in, and I don't know. That's what we got going on around here. Rice
Well,
cakes.
here, Coté, as we close out on this fascinating topic, I just feel like we should leave everyone with some information here. So, a typical plain rice cake, it has 35 to 40 calories. Yes, as Matt talked about, calories in the United States are the same as kilocalories. So it's just
Okay.
I guess here in the U.S. And then for
Don't tell me what they
Matt
are in
and all of
joules or
his
kilojoules.
Australian listeners, that's 146 to 167 kilojoules. So there you go. So now you know exactly
You've
what you're
ruined
getting.
eating for me.
There you go. That's what you're getting in your next rice cake if you're forced to eat it.
So I'm getting a few kilojoules. Is that
Right.
Getting 146
no.
kilojoules. So there you
146
go.
maybe that might be enough to power thinking ChatGPT for an answer.
It does feel like it feels like you could just tell your young children, it's like, hey, I'm about to give you some kilojoules, some power ups, right? And it just seems like it seems
get
more
excited.
exciting than calories.
You know,
Some
but-
KJs.
But the thing is, like, even though our units here are kilojoules and kilometers, people still talk about mileage and watching their calories.
Well,
It
there you go.
boggles the mind.
You know what? The United States wins again. We'll take the win.
Well, when it comes to people using miles and calories, Brandon, it is what it is. I think we just have to accept it. We may not like it, but people think in terms of calorie busters. They're not kilojoule busters. That's what people are using. But that's an allusion to, I'm always on the fence. Do we talk about return to office or not? And I think the fence has disappeared. We're just going to be talking about it.
Wait a minute. Maybe we can have it before we even talk about it. So this stage here is Uber.
You want to go back to
CEO.
kilojoules and rice
No,
cakes?
no, no. I was just going to say,
No.
I just think it's like we don't even have to talk about return office. I just think it's sort of like it's maybe a variation of corporate comms. So it's like the Uber CEO came out.
I like that. That's
So
an
the Uber
upgrade.
CEO came out and just said they did two things. They basically said everyone needs to come in an extra day a week. So it's okay. So now 3 out of 5. And they also said they took away, I guess they offered like a sabbatical after 5 years. Now they made it after 8 years. So not surprisingly, right? We've seen this play out many times. There was a lot of blowback in, I guess, the Slido, the online question tools, and people were upset. So, ultimately the Uber CEO is quoted as saying, I think he's, I don't think this is controversial also, or the fact that he said this is not controversial. He just said it is what it is. Right. And I just think that is an interesting corporate communication strategy. And I think in this case, I think he was he was happy to tell everyone it is what it is. If you choose not to be here, you can't, you don't want to, then it's kind of like, here's the door. Right. And I always think to myself, it's like, I actually wrote to myself that I think this may be the most honest leadership principle of all of corporate life. You know what I mean? It's just it's just rare sometimes where it's like, all the things, all the leadership principles everyone writes, it's sort of like, no one just writes this one. It's like, listen, sometimes and many times it is what it is. The company, your job, and some of the other things we're going to talk about this week, foundations. And it's like, there's some clarity in just saying it out loud, right? But there's also, I think, a real potential for backfiring, because I think it as a leader, right? It is what it is. And I like both of your opinions. It's sort of a very resignation statement, right? Like, we can't change it. It is what it is, right? Well, most companies, just to kind of, before I just hand it to you guys, just sort of like most companies, most leaders, it's sort of like you're at a company, you're trying to change something, sell more, make customers' lives better, do something, right? And you sort of want to take on the challenges and not accept just it is what it is. Even at times where you're just like, I don't know if the thing we can do, we can ultimately change it. So I think it's interesting when an executive chooses this word, because it's sort of kind of becomes like a cultural tombstone, I guess, if you will, or touchstone, maybe tombstone's Freudian slip there.
No, you said
touchstone.
No,
and it's like,
backs.
do you really ultimately, is this what you want to be saying to your group of you think highly paid, smart individuals? So Matt, go. Matt, what do you think when you hear is what it is from a leader?
This is like the crossing the Rubicon point of a company's culture, because there's no return here, because what you've now said is like everything before this was we're a big team. We've got this vision. We're attacking the future. We're going. And now it's like, it's a job. It is what it is. There's no escaping the gravity of boring business economics, and you give up on you can keep calling it a mission if you want, but you've also already told everybody, look, this is a job. You are expendable. We're not a family. Welcome to corporate life.
Right. And I think, Coté, the thing I was thinking about for many of your talks, right, many of your kind of thing that you talk about is like, and we just kind of say digital transformation as a whole, right? The number one thing you're trying to overcome is this idea. It is what it is. Like, it is like the number one thing. Like, if you're going in, whether you're with VMware or with Wiz or with any of the many companies we've all worked for and work for now, you're usually trying to advocate for some type of change. Here is a better way. Here's a way to do something easier. Here's a way to do something that will have some long-term gain. And it is natural for human beings to be like, well, I don't know if we can do that here. Right. And I think that is, to me, like when you sort of embrace this as a leader, you're kind of giving into that pitch. So I don't know, Coté, I just feel like that's what I was thinking about when I heard this. It sort of like goes against if you resonates with many of the talks that I've seen you give, and I think you give now in your job.
I think your framing has changed my thinking about it, because at first when I read this, well, one, I haven't found nor sought nor read a full transcript of the leaked audio recording, which it's always good to do that. So nonetheless, despite that, like I was thinking it was more of this sort of like upfront clarity instead of I'm mixing metaphors here, but mealy mouthing. However, what you two are raising reminds me. Well, first of all, let me say, I think I have found a problem with kind of just like I told you so as a parent message, because you kind of can't show your kids the door, right? You can't be like, I told you so, and you got to eat your dinner, and if you don't like it, there's the door. It's sort of like not really an option. So you can't really pull this on them. But second, it reminds me of I don't know if they say this in Dutch, but among the expat community, there's an infamous Dutch phrase, maybe number 3 for people. I mean, in the top 3, which is, it is not possible. And this is a reply I've gotten several times, but I've heard many stories of, you call someone up for whatever, and you say, oh, I'd like this to happen, and could you help me with this? And say, it is not possible. And really, it's not said when something is physically impossible. What it is not possible typically means is, I don't want to do that. Right. And so like, it's usually like the kind of customer service thing where you might be saying, like, I think a while ago I talked about needing to move my doctors around. And you might say like, oh, I need to get a prescription refill. And they'll say, oh, you got to transfer to a place. It is not possible. And you're like, I think it is possible. You could just do it. Right. Like, you're deciding to do it or not. And I think that's kind of the category. Again, I haven't like read the full transcript, so whatever. But like, that's the category of statements like this, is like, especially if you're the CEO, it's like, no, you make what is, right? So like, so this is a good step, as a corporate therapist might say, which I think is a burgeoning possible line of business for software defined talk. The software defined talk corporate therapy sessions for not only little busy executives, but big busy executives, whatever size we can take it on. This is a good step towards like clarity and not being mealy mouthed. But I think the next step is, I told you so, right? It's just like, no, this is what I want to do. This is what we're going to do. I could have defended it. I could have done that, but I didn't. I'm the CEO. It's my responsibility. Get your ass back to work, right? Like, there's no, eat your broccoli. And I'm not going to like escape into the passive voice of things, which, I've heard corporate talk like that in my career, from leaders, and you can not like what you're hearing, which is fine, but it is, when someone tells you that they have the authority to make a decision and that they have decided that's what their decision is, it's kind of like, it is what it is in that case. It's just like, oh, okay, I guess there's no discussion. Now, the other part is, yes, I mean, the whole, it does, I don't know. I think maybe it's a little not overthinking, but like, Uber's, what are they, at least 20 years old now? And they're not like illegal anymore, like they started off with. I'm sure when they were just out there, like, breaking the law about taxi services. Like, I remember Andrew Schaefer and I were in Belgium once, and we called an Uber because we're Americans. And like, a Belgian taxi driver came up and like hit the car and argued with them because, what are you going to do? But like, I'm sure back then, they wouldn't have been like, well, we can't really have a taxi service because it's illegal, and that's just the way it is.
Yeah.
Right.
And
like,
I think, no, but I think that you're getting to like what I think the heart of the issue is. It's just sort of like, clearly that attitude at the beginning of Uber, I mean, probably to the point where it was like, they actually did violate the law in some ways. Right. So you can say it was too far, but it just kind of shows you, like, as soon as you start to inject this, and I think, like, I do think this kind of comes back to like, I always think it's like culture is sort of like, culture is what happens when you're not talking about culture. It's like, okay, well, what's going on here?
Whoa.
So it's like, so if you think about, I assume this meeting went to like hundreds of people, maybe thousands of people. And if you just think to yourself, like, okay, I'm the leader. I've just left the meeting and I told everyone it is what it is. Like, do you think everyone went back to work and was like more excited to work, was like more motivated? Like, do you think, I mean, like how, like just as just a human being after hearing that, and is that what you want? Because obviously, the reason there's some accountability here is like, you are the one making the most money in most cases. You are the one that's responsible. So you have to like choose your words just like a parent very carefully. Could have just said something like, I realize, you don't have to walk it back. You can say, I realize this is very difficult. We believe this, or you would say, we believe this is in the best interest of the company, and that's why we're doing it. And then you just kind of have to leave it and just let people come at you, and just like, you just have to keep repeating that. It's like, we believe it's in the best. If that's what you truly believe, okay, then it's fine. But I think it's sort of like, at least you're putting forth like, I am doing what I believe is in the best interest of the company. And ultimately, that the implicit statement is that, and we all benefit from that. But the is what it is. And I think now let's go one more level. I think apply this to just Uber in general, because I would just kind of say like Uber, the service, it's like, it's fine. It is what it is. Like, I'm not unhappy with it. Like, when I use it, it seems to be fine. I'm glad it's around. I'm just kind of waiting though. I would much prefer just the self-driving stuff be everywhere. Like, I'm just kind of waiting on that. Like, I don't have any, like, Uber hasn't allowed me to get rid of my car. It hasn't done any fundamental changes. It is it's a much better experience to get a taxi, especially when you're traveling and stuff like that. But it's like, that's it, and all, you said it's 20 years old. I don't know exactly, but it's like, I don't, it's like, it really hasn't changed the value proposition in like 10 plus years. It's just like, sometimes I log into the app, there's a new terms and services. I have to agree. They've clearly hired very skilled iOS engineers. There's some nice, pretty graphs and stuff, but it's just, it just is what it is. And I think ultimately, you got to be real careful when you say this stuff, because I do think the day is coming where people are just going to look at Uber and just be like, well, it is what it is. We're ready for Waymo or whatever it is. And we're all going to just walk on past Uber. And I think, that then you, the CEO, you better be prepared for like when everyone kind of gives you that statement. Well, you are what you are. We're moving on.
Exactly. That was my point is this is such a passive assertion of the way it's going to be. There's no like, oh, I'm taking charge and a difficult decision was going to be made. It's like, I can't control this anymore. We're just, at the whim of corporate culture, and it is what it is.
Yeah. And I do think it would be interesting, like, the next person that met with maybe later that day, I'm sure there were meetings and people were presenting, and it's just sort of like when you go into that presentation with, the CEO, and you're probably a little nervous, or maybe, you're talking about something, or you have a good idea. It's like, I don't know, like, are you more excited to talk to them? It's like, what, are you going to get the is what it is, kind of treatment when you're in the meeting? And it's like, am I sitting down with like somebody I really think's going to help me and like help the business, or am I just getting the is what it is kind of attitude?
But
like,
also, I mean, probably not a lot of people joining Uber today are thinking like, oh, this is a exciting, vibrant company that's changing. Like it's already done, right? It's baked, and I guess we go back and reread the article and see how the stock market's treating it, but it's like, it's just a known quantity, and probably a lot of people involved in the company at this point are interchangeable, which is what it is.
Yeah. Now, Brandon, you're always a much more closer reader and a rememberer of the things that we cover, which is great. I appreciate someone who's paying attention. And now their HR person also said that like some employee crossed the line in what they were saying, and then I almost went back to reread the article and find what that was. But did they actually quote what this line crossing was? I
didn't see anything quoted. I think they just went on you made it sound like in Slido, the online place where people can obviously ask questions and make comments in a virtual presentation. I'm sure many of our listeners use it. It's just like, it sounds like, they said some things that were over the line, which is probably, I mean, again, not condoning that. Like, hey, listen, I don't know what was said. I don't know what it is, but like, I'm sure, people were upset, and I'm sure they wrote some things that are inappropriate. It sounds like the HR person's going to contact them. So it's like,
they'd rather,
but again, it kind of goes back to the whole thing. It's like, okay, like just back to corporate comms, like we're going to deliver some difficult news that's going to upset people. Like, we have to, pick our words so incredibly carefully. 2, maybe this is a time where you shut down the questions. You say, listen, I'm not going to open this up because I'm worried that, there could be some people may say some things that they regret, right? I would just come out and say, it's like, I want you guys to hear this from me first. I'm saying this is why we're going to do it. We're not having a huge Q&A around this because I know it's a difficult topic, and I know a lot of people are unhappy about it. We'll talk to people individually after this. So I think it's just sort of like, are you managing, you know what I mean? It's like, are you managing your comms well? Are you maintaining your culture? And to, Matt, your point there, it's like, again, like, is just back to the question for the CEO. It's like, okay, like everyone's interchangeable. We're not necessarily bringing people that want to quote unquote, change the world or things like that. Is like, that's fine. I have no problem with that. But I'm like, is that what the CEO wants? Is that what he believes who's hiring? Is that like, is this all consistent? Or is it like, well, because the other challenge could be, it's like, hey, Waymo's coming, right? We have to either be the thing that, if you will, the front end of Waymo, right? Or we got to build something else, right? Because that could be a mission everyone gets behind, right? Or we look at Uber and the stock investors are just like, hey, it is what it is. The multiple is what it is, right? I mean, so I just think, all these things are to me very related. So it's a short sentence, but I thought it had quite an impact, at least on Uber for the day.
Well, it sounds like, as far as being nice and not a bunch of assholes, the Uber culture's really cleaned itself up. If there's a line to cross, it's like that. That definitely. I don't know if y'all remember this, but when I was growing up and Uber was new, there were no lines at Uber. They were fucking shit up everywhere, and they were pretty notorious for that. So good on them. They've improved, become more humane. Good to know. Good to know that they've done well. Now, speaking of, you brought up Waymo. I haven't been in a Waymo car. I forget if one of you has or
no,
not.
I've seen them.
People are very enthusiastic about them. They love them. And there was another report, which I only read a cursoriness. I didn't go look it up. I didn't enroll myself in a university so I could access the academic papers over at the Archive X or whatever the place where they post these things are. But it looks like, oh, no, it was actually a commission report. But that's fine. We all trade in commission reports, I think, or done in partnership. But it was basically some kind of analysis that a Waymo car gets in less accidents than a human does. And,
Yep.
With bikers and other people. And it was reminding me, of this thing we have. There must be a name for this. I don't think you would call it a bias, but this kind of framing, which is we hold robots to higher standards than we hold ourselves. And so if the robot, it's terrible to run over someone. No robot wakes up in the morning is like, I'm going to run over someone. Right? The robots don't want to do it and we don't want it to happen. But it seems like the robots are running over people a lot less than the people, but they run over 1, 2, 10 people and suddenly it's terrible. But
then you got yourself a trolley problem.
but then these other humans, they're running over people all the time. I mean, relatively. And they drive and people don't seem to be complaining about that. And I think similarly, it was making me think a similar thing applies to a lot of AI talk, or at least the part of AI talk of the quality of it and if it's wrong or not. And I'm sure at least if not all of us, have joked about this in the past, but it's I don't know. Have you seen a lot of humans' performance on this stuff? It's pretty shitty, right? And so the level of quality can be a lot better. And we just maybe we need to have lower expectations of the robots. And now I think in your area of specialty of robotics, Matt Ray, opening doors and leaping around, still a lot of work to do in the robot area. The dogs are improving.
They're running marathons, man.
I feel like there's still Hercules in the doorknobs and, just messing things up, falling right and left. But in other areas, I think maybe the robots are fine and we should just lay off a criticism of them. I think they're doing okay.
Good job, robots.
Also, speaking of things that aren't robots, now I haven't followed it. Y'all talked about the Nat Sinadia thing, and I think there was a resolution.
Yep.
After you recorded, so
absolutely.
Now I have a bridge to that. Well, a bridge, which is what we I was listening. I was trying to follow it along. And then I was listening to the Oxide podcast where they were going over that. One, yeah. I think if you have the stature of someone like Brian Cantrell and you're going to leak that the Kubernetes people were thinking of leaving the CNCF, you got to just dive into that, right? I don't need I don't want these drive-by rumor things. That's one of the things that in any sort of context that annoys me to no end is when someone's like, oh, I know something, but I can't tell you. And I'm like, come on. Who the fuck cares?
Yeah.
Get into it, right? Or just whatever. And usually it's hey, I mean, I understand with him. He just it's obvious that he says things before they've fully processed through his head, which is part of his charm, right? It's great. You don't no lines, right? No lines there, which is good. It's if you know how to control that beast, it's wonderful. But people usually if you're going to hold something secret, just like don't mention it. No need to do it. Right. It's
Well,
like telling me.
I don't think that's super. I think
I
that's
have
been
this,
out there, right? Isn't that?
I
well,
think,
that was a total side note. Anyways, I want to go
Okay.
back. I was thinking, like, speaking of the like, it is what it is. Like, I was sort of following that news, and I was listening to the podcast, and I was like, you know what? It is what it is. We know this story. Same thing. Not a different mechanics.
yeah.
But it's just like fucking around. Anyways, what was the resolution for our listeners who get all their news from us?
Yeah, the resolution was probably behind the scenes. They realized this was a stupid thing to argue about in public, and they ended like any public conversation, and they agreed that Nats stays with the CNCF, which everybody knew was going to happen, and Synadia is welcome to do whatever it is they want, and that's. They didn't
As in,
need
they
to
can
have
fork
a whole
it. They can
press
fork the
cycle around
project
this.
if they wish, right? I mean, that's basically.
They can leave. They can they can stay. Nothing's changing.
Or they can do the buoyant move. Seems like the one that you would do. You would just be like, we're just going to
but
not.
You don't need to announce that. You can just
that's what I'm saying. You just kind of do it. But I thought what that podcast I actually thought was very interesting. I started listening like, I thought they were going to talk like more about it, but like it was actually really interesting. Brian Cantrell and then Adam Jacob was on there as well, and it was very interesting. I don't know. Hopefully I'm not mischaracterizing. I think neither one of them is a fan of the CNCF. I think if you listen to the podcast, I don't think there's any way you could really come away from that. And that was kind of, I guess I kind of knew that a little bit, but like the tenor of the conversation was stronger than I had thought.
I mean, the thing about the CNCF and foundations of its like is, I think Adam pointed out that it's calling it a foundation. Sure, it's an industry trade group, right? They are there to move something forward on behalf of their quote unquote investors, and the covenant they have with everyone is that they provide a safe haven for software. They're not there. Maybe they're not there are a lot of things you can take down about it. They're not investing enough in the people. They're overly focused on the commercialism and making money for themselves and the marketing aspects and doing conferences. Sure, you can criticize them all that, but at the end of the day, oh my God, here we go again. It is what it is. They are the least worst alternative, right?
Right.
I mean, they're literally like a democracy, right? Everybody complains about it, but nobody really wants any of the alternatives.
So to that, that's exactly. I don't know, Matt. You and I are 100% aligned because that's exactly what I thought. And I guess I have really never thought of them as like being more like I just what you said, safe haven. And I also think like this is the thing that struck me with both Brian and Adam statements. It's like I see their point of view. I think their point of view is something like we believe it would be great if the CNCF sort of like put more money into directly supporting the projects, which I think means hire developer or at least funding developers, funding documentation
it's a mess internally, right?
But I think, but part of me also comes back to this, like, listen, you can want that. I understand that you want that, but I really think there's a lot of people that do want this broad-based safe haven marketing organization. Like, I think when you get to the founders of the companies and the creators of these projects, right. Well, I'm saying, but that's kind of like what they want in the sense of like, they're willing to donate money, paid for the memberships, have access to the big trade shows. And it's like, I understand you can say like, you don't want that, but like, there does seem to be a big set of constituents that do want that. Right. And kind of like, if you're starting an open source project today, I think a lot of people want the fact that like, I can join the CNCF, I can go to KubeCon, I can advertise my stuff. And we can debate whether or not, and I think Adam Jacob had like maybe the more measured take. I think he was sort of like, I think he was very much adamant to your point about like, they own the trademarks. They have to keep the trademarks, right? Or I think Cantrell was like way to the right. He was like, no, it should all be up for grabs. But Adam was like, no, that's what they have to do. But I think at the same time, I think he sort of questioned like, was that a value? And I think for Adam, my take is like, he's experienced enough, done this enough that he doesn't necessarily need or even see the value in kind of the industry marketing arm of it. I think he feels like he can do that on his own. Mm-hmm.
If you have a project or if you have a startup you have to take a really long, hard look at why you would give them your your code, your baby. And I say this from somebody who
Who did that,
I
right?
I,
Yeah.
I I didn't give it to them, but I dealt with like dealing with the CNCF from the
Hmm.
inside, with the Open Cost project. And I think Open Cost actually is like a perfect thing to be there, right? Because it had enough separation from the parent company where, they put it in here. Ostensibly, it provides an engine for other people to innovate on, you know, but it was a pain. I mean, the CNCF logistics internally, they are quote unquote volunteers with the sprinkler and paid people inside, and like everything took way longer than expected. Just you know, it was it was slow and tedious, and to some people that's a feature, right? You want this friction to keep things from moving along to graduation so they can get rug pulled. But you know, I even at the time I was like, this sucks. But the alternative would be obscurity.
Yeah.
Would be you have this open source project that nobody knows about, and it's a lot harder to bring, to get attention for it. I think, when we were at Chef, we were asked, oh, could you contribute this to the Apache Foundation or some other open source thing before the CNCF? And we're like, no, there's no upside for it. And that's Adam's point. Really, is like there better be a really compelling upside for you to do this, because the downside is you lose control over,
Right.
you
And
lose
I think you hit
control
it though.
over.
I think that's the point. That's maybe the biggest point that I think was missed in that whole discussion was like, rightly or wrongly, people view it if they don't do it, they'll be lost in obscurity. No one will ever know of their thing. And like, it is fair to say, like, it is fair to debate that. Maybe they wouldn't. Maybe they built the thing that was so good it would overcome that. But that to me is like why I think it exists. Is like there's just a whole group of people out there that believe that like we need to bootstrap something and to get some awareness. This organization is providing that. And you could say that's right or wrong, but that's what they provide. And so like the
Yeah.
fact that like, yeah, it would be not, I mean, you could have a whole nother foundation that was exclusively focused in on funding and paying for development and stuff like that. I just don't think generally there's just not a lot of people that want to do that. Right. And I think companies that want to do that prefer to just pay people directly and have them work on stuff that's related to their 100% control. So, I mean, it is to maybe end where we started. Like, I would just kind of say back to all of those guys, like, it kind of is what it is. The CNCF is what it is. And like it,
You
hate
can
it,
complain,
it is what it is.
but the alternative is worse, right? And I think but I think you know I don't know if System Initiative is a member of the CNCF. Obviously we can go fact check ourselves later, but like it would still behoove them to be at probably like KubeCon and the conferences, to have a booth and to be in that conversation, even if your project's not there. And to me, it's like they've built this center of attention, where it's like you kind of need to be involved. I don't think you have to give your project to them anymore, though. I mean, I think you can kind of get some marketing buzz just off association without like giving up your crown jewels.
Well, I think somewhere, I think we've talked about this show before, but somewhere somebody, some enterprising MBA or, a venture analyst should do some type of analysis, be like, hey, total up all the companies in there that are venture funded, right? Like, what are they paying to the CNCF? Quantify what exposure they're getting versus projects that haven't done it. And then you kind of just figure out, like, is it a good investment? Like, to your point, like maybe it's like you just attend the shows and it's just as good, right? Or whatever, something along those lines. So, but I do think it is, I don't like, to me, it's sort of like people want, like, that was my biggest takeaway from the whole episode, was sort of like missing the point. It's like, there's a bunch of people that want this and you could tell them they're wrong, and that's fine. But like, they believe it's important. The venture capitalists believe it's important. The vendors that want to pay for it believe it's important. So that's why it exists. There is not a group of people who are like, you know what we should do? Just fund the developers directly and let them build the software and leave them alone. No one wants to do that. Like, I'm not saying that's a bad idea either, but like, there's nobody out there who's like, I'm doing that. So maybe an interesting idea. Absolutely no one wants to do it.
Right.
Well, in a related area, well, not related, but related by the tools. I do a little messing around with D&D stuff here. And in the D&D world, there's an interesting parallel to all of this, where they actually, I think in April, they released like the core rules, the source code, if you will, under just Creative Commons attribution, which, that means you can pretty much do anything as long as you attribute it to them. And then, of course, there was an update in May for some things that they missed. And they actually added all this new stuff. And this has been I think a 10 or 15 year thing of trying to have an open system and then rug pulling on it and going back to it and freaking out. And it's when I was reading the history of this and seeing it, it's kind of an encouraging IP thing where they more realized that if it's not programming, so it's slightly different, but if we allow other people to build stuff in the community around this, we'll still have our market and be able to sell plenty of things, which I don't know if in the open source world things work that way necessarily, because whenever you have a commercial interest, because a lot of the time you want all the money. And I'm sure Hasbro would like all the money, but there is something to be said for not just what do you call it, fan fiction, but more the ecosystem that you're building around it and kind of ensuring that exists. But I wonder, I mean, that's supposed to exist in the open source world, but I don't know if it exists as much as I maybe think it does or should.
I for all the people in Red Hat sales who complained about CentOS and the this is that. This is the fact that people have access to the same engine. They're putting out other stuff, but when you are a Red Hat salesperson, would you rather go into try to sell to a SUSE shop or a CentOS shop? You'd rather go in and try to sell something where you already have a foothold. And I think this is the same thing where the Dungeons and Dragons pie has been grown where, oh, you have some commercial stuff to sell. Well, we have a lot more people using it that are already using your stuff and already encouraged to buy more, as opposed to now you need to go break into chess players, right? It's a different ecosystem and you don't have a toehold there. And so I think open source, that's the whole marketing awareness angle of it, is people might not be paying you yet, but they're at least using your stuff. And they, at some point there should be a compelling reason for them to pay you, whether it's
Now, just the thing that I'm going to be curious to watch out for is if there's the serial entrepreneur thing that happens, because two of the main people.
Be a D&D rug pull?
Well, no, two of the main people who do D&D stuff retired right after this stuff was released, and the cynical mind in me was I wonder if they were really pushing for that because they're gonna quit and then take those rules and go do their own stuff. Ooh. But probably not. I have a feeling that one of these people had worked there for 28 years, and I think if you work on something as culturally big as D&D for 28 years, you're probably a diehard fanatic about it, and you care about it. Unlike fucking event systems and databases. It's not.
I do think just as we kind of wrap on this stuff, it's I do think the one thing I just want to throw in here was sort of and maybe this is just another foundational thing. It's sort of as the pie grows, the people will continue to argue over who gets the most pie. And I think Apple this week is another one with their recent lawsuit, and it's sort of kind of showing their, if you will, I don't want to call it frustration, but sort of they certainly app developers and Apple are very frustrated. Apple's sort of we built this platform, sort of you're lucky to have it. Whereas I think the app developer always because of these apps, you make a lot of money. Right. And it's sort of but there's this ongoing, and I think you just always have this this need to optimize. Everyone wants more. So in the case of Apple, it sounds like they went so far that this judge was really angry with them and was in fact, not only did you do everything wrong, somebody maybe violated the law, so you may be in real big trouble. And I think I think maybe we just sort of leave it at this. It's sort of it's not surprising when people try to optimize for themselves to make money. Some would say it is
shocker.
What it is. It is what it is, Coté.
Yeah. Well, speaking of things that are and is what they is, there's a bunch of conferences coming up. We've got the free AI workshop coming up. That's going to be the one that I'm actually going to have a talk at and being emceeing next week, May 13th. It's before Cloud Foundry Day, which is then on May 14th. There's also the Melbourne Wiz meetup on May 13th.
Yeah.
So you're going to have to pick which one are you going to be going to. I know it's going to be tough.
Wait. Time zones might be your friend here.
That's
Can
right.
you make both?
Maybe you could charter a plane. So
Let us know if you attend both. Please write in and let us know how that went. I would love to hear about that.
And then there's also KCD, Kubernetes Community Day. Is that what it is? In Austin on May 15th. My friend Whitney will be there, and Brandon, I hear he may or may not be there. We'll see what happens.
Right.
And then I'll be speaking at NDC Oslo, May 21st to 23rd. I'm only speaking once, not all that time. And then Brandon, you're going to be going to a conference that features a forward slash in it. You
That's right. I'm going to go out to PostCon 25. It's out in Los Angeles, June 3rd and 4th. So, looking forward to it. Would like to meet up with some listeners, of course, see what everyone's doing. And looks like Ryan Gosling, it looks based on the show, is going to be speaking. So
Ryan Reynolds.
That's a keynote.
Ryan Reynolds.
Sorry, Ryan Reynolds. I got it wrong. Getting them all.
Maybe they could both be there.
Maybe they'll both be there. Even better. Ryan Reynolds. Thank you. I was going to be there. So, I don't think we've covered a keynote quite like this. So I don't know. Maybe I'm going to live Slack that one. I'm not sure what's going to go on, but I'm going to be at that keynote for sure. So if you're going to be there, let me know. Find me in the Slack. I'll give you some stickers, and we can figure out which Ryan was better. The Ryan I thought was going to be there, or the Ryan that was actually there.
Hey girl,
I'm hoping the media relations people can snag you an interview. I think it might that might.
If they can, that will probably be our best interview of all time, at least by downloads. So I don't know, and I'll have to watch a lot of movies because I don't know if I know everything.
And then finally, there's SRE Day. Sorry for the Germans, Cologne, or I won't try to cold whatever. That's going to be June 12th to 25th. I'll be speaking there as well. You can get a 10% off discount if you use CLG10. You can get all of the discounts that are available, plus a list of conferences, things that we talked about and we didn't, if you go to softwaredefinedtalk.com/518. And with that, Matt, what do you have to recommend this episode?
It's still ongoing, but I'm really enjoying season 2 of Andor on Disney. If you are a Star Wars fan, I think Andor is my favorite thing, and the whole Star Wars multiverse universe. Probably because it doesn't really have any Jedis or magic. It's like a grown-up story about fighting fascism and the birth of the rebellion. So I'm highly enjoying it, and you will too.
How about yourself, Brandon? What do you have to recommend?
Well, a couple things. I was thinking to myself, man, I'm glad George Lucas wasn't like, well, what if they just said it is what it is and nothing happened? That would be a boring show. So good. Glad George Lucas gave us that as well. Well, one thing I just wanted to quickly call out is I sent, I believe it's, I think it's Ricio stickers in Chile. His boss recommended the show to him, and so he's getting stickers for both he and his boss. So good boss. That's what I want. Everybody's boss should be recommending the show to their employees and then making their employees get stickers. And that's probably how you're going to get promoted. Like we've talked a lot about careers and things like that. The number one way to get, I've done a research, the number one way to get to get promoted is to get your boss a sticker. So if you'd like a sticker for you and your boss, email your postal address to stickers@softwaredefinedtalk.com. Happy to send you a sticker anywhere in the world. On my recommendation this week, I have done some major upgrades here. So I have deprecated my old Edge router from Ubiquiti. It was utilizing this Edge OS, and I've taken the plunge into the Unify product line. So far I really like it. I put all this in here: a Unify Express Cloud Gateway. I have a Flex HD access point, a U6 Plus access point, and a nice PoE switch. So far it's been great, and it's been relatively simple. And I will just say this: the user interface, huge upgrade. Can see all kinds of fun things about my network. So if you're into networking and things like that, definitely check it out. Now, a couple things I did learn here. One, Ubiquiti sort of has shamed me about my Ethernet terminations. So it's like when you actually have to put it together. So I've now learned that when you move up to enterprise grade equipment, it actually cares about how good the connection is and will downgrade you. It'll be like, oh, you didn't do a good job. We're only giving you 100 megabits on this. So then I have to go back and I have to like re-terminate it. So I didn't know. I didn't realize that, if you will, this level of enterprise equipment was going to shame me. So it's I don't know. I hate terminating Ethernet connectors. I suck at it. I don't know how people are good at it, but that's the only, if you will, downside. And then finally, I just want to throw out, I have some questions for, I think this is a good network group inside of Software Defined Talk. So I'm trying to figure out what is the best way to terminate all of this in my wiring closet. So far, here's what I've done. I've terminated most of them to the male Ethernet connections. I've now coupled them into a patch panel, so it's male to male. But my issue is like now I just have like so many more cables. I have like cables everywhere. And I just feel like I feel like maybe I've gone wrong. So is it wrong? Is it wrong as a home network wannabe to just be like, I'm just going to plug those Ethernet terminations right into the switch and just use no patch panel? And if you have an opinion on like, no, I should be terminating these to the female jacks, and then that's the way to do it. I would like everyone to tell me what is the right way, and what I should be doing. Because I feel like what I have now was an attempt to clean things up, but I now have more cables and more complexity. So please tell me what I should be doing. Tell me what home networking gurus are doing out there.
Just don't look at my setup.
Maybe that's what it is. Maybe you just close the door. You just close the door and you just never look in there. I want it to look beautiful though. I want it to be great. No.
You know what? It doesn't look beautiful if nobody looks at it.
Well, and this maybe brings me to the final thought before I turn it over to you, Coté, for your recommendation. Is like, well, you know what? Maybe in the end, I should just use the wireless and just have a lot. Get away from that. Like it makes me think like if I can't have a beautiful network set up, maybe I just have to give into the wireless. So anyway, find me in Slack. Tell me what everyone's doing. If so, it would be great if you posted pictures in there because I'm looking for ideas about how to make it cleaner. So, all right, Coté, after all that, what's your recommendation?
Well, just a little quick follow-up. I think you need to go dig in your drawer, find your label maker, charge it up with your funky USB thing, and then just print, you got to put this on your rack, print out a label that says it is what it is, and then just close the door and you'll be fine. Just accept it. Well, my recommendation, my speaking of the 5-year-old, she actually requested to watch these. We recently watched original, I don't know if that's the right wording, but the original 1989 Batman. I forget when it came out. Tim, what's his face? Yeah, there you go. And then we watched the Batman Returns with Danny DeVito as the Penguin. Now we actually watched those in reverse order, but that's fine. You know what? They're good movies. They're even above fine. I was worried that they would be like cheesy and silly, and they are kind of cheesy and silly, but they straddle the line pretty well. It's no Andor, from what I hear, but it's nice. It's a good watch. I didn't look at it through the lens of as we do nowadays of like has it aged well as far as like tastefulness. I'm sure there's some things here and there, but it was good stuff. Speaking of things that are good stuff, you've listened to another episode of Software Defined Talk. Now, as I mentioned previously, if you want to see a bunch of links to things we didn't talk about and things we did, like the valuation of Cursor at $8 billion or something, Windsurf, and then Cursor has a bigger one. There's great coverage of that in the cloud. And I noticed, Brandon, cloud and AI monthly. They're getting into some new stuff over there, over at the Cloudcast. Excellent coverage of it there if you want to catch up on it. But if you want to get links to that, you can go to softwaredefinedtalk.com/518. We also have that Slack channel Brandon alluded to. You should join that to talk about things in there. Networking, films, cheese, whatever. And with that, we'll see everyone next time. Bye-bye.
Bye.
All right. Good show as always. Good. I know Matt has to run here. I just say, Brian has asked for a photo of the cables, but I feel like I'm a little embarrassed to take a picture of the current state of the networking closet. So I gotta like,
if you share yours, because
I need to like, worse, I mean, it's almost like I can't have people over in the house with this kind of mess. It's definitely, it's gotten a little out of the hand. So I'm gonna have to do some cleanup. So, all right, Matt, we'll see you next time. Coté, you're just a wireless person, aren't you, Coté? You don't mess with this Ethernet that much.
Well, we do have Ethernet here and there, but I just I don't know how to do anything. So I have like the the router that the people gave me,
Hmm.
and I have an Ethernet cable that runs to my desk from it, and then
Okay.
I have my old Orbi router, and
Hmm.
there are Ethernet cables that run through the house, and I ran an Ethernet from the Zyxel thing they gave me to the Orbi router, and then
Hmm.
the Orbi router has Ethernet cables that hook up to the rest of the house.
Okay, when you say ran it, like under a rug, across, like
No,
in
it's
the
like in the
wall,
walls or
like,
some shit.
okay,
Yeah.
so you did that yourself, or you paid someone to do it? Like, I mean, that
No, no,
sounds
no,
like some advanced
no.
work there.
Yeah, yeah. We had the electrician just run the cables.
All right, there you go. All right, well, that's maybe the best thing is just to just stay out of it, right? Hire someone to work on it and just never look at it. Then maybe that's the best. Maybe that's the best thing in life. Just don't. The less you know, the better.
Yeah, yeah. What's good in life? Crush your enemies, see them driven before you. Hire someone to install home networking.
Fantastic. All right. Well, thanks. I see Brian in here. Good to see Brian. Haven't seen him in a while. So great to see him. And then Henning as well, and a few other people. So, and then Michael. Michael's always here, but he had to run. So, as always, appreciate everyone hanging out in the stream. It's always fun to get your feedback as we go along. We will likely stream next week around this time. So until then,